Thank you. Thank you, Odessa, for that wonderful introduction, and very excited to hear the WIS team speak after me a little bit more on the tapestry segmentation. So appreciate you all being here this afternoon. My understanding is that Georgia Power sent out a survey and understood that the feedback of that survey is there's a lot of interest in the retail space, and we're certainly seeing that among cities and economic development agencies across the country. Retail Strategies is a firm based out of Birmingham, Alabama. We consult for about 120 municipalities in the country, and it's been formed for about 4 years. But I have a decade of experience in the retail real estate sector and have spoken at a lot of different events. So what I want to do today is just hit on the highlights of what we're seeing as far as retail trends across the country, and then drill that down to some best practices, what you can look at locally. But before I do that, I kind of want to gauge the audience a little bit. How many of you are in a community with a population of less than 10,000? Okay, about a quarter of you. How many of you are in a population with more of a city with more than 100,000 within your city? Just a couple. Okay.
City or county?
Let's go county for 100,000. Okay, about half. Okay, good. A lot of times when we talk, it's primarily the audience is rural communities, smaller communities, and so that really helps me gauge where to focus my talking points. And so it looks like a pretty good mix. So we'll hit on all of it today. So moving forward, what I think is so important in looking in retail, if you look at traditional thinking, it was let's do industrial recruitment. Let's go after those high-paying jobs. The rooftops will follow that, and then the retail's going to follow that. Well, 1 in 4 jobs in America are retail-based. This is the National Federation for Retail, and they did a study about looking at the impact of retail. And I know that the traditional thinking is, well, retail jobs pay lower, and that is true if you take all the retail jobs across the board. But a lot of those are seasonal, part-time, and temporary. You take those full-time jobs between the age of 25 to 54, retail jobs actually pay a little bit more than non-retail jobs. So I'm thrilled that you're all here today and have the interest in retail, because it does make a difference. It's a lot of little wins that add up to a big win for your community. And as you all know, the more vibrant your community is on a retail base, the more competitive you'll be on your industrial recruitment, because you're not always just trying to catch that CEO, you're trying to catch the whole family. And so they want to know where they can eat and shop and those things, and that's why retail is so important. When I first started looking at retail and the types of jobs that come with it and what an average annual sales volume is for a retailer, I was pretty blown away to find out that an average fast food restaurant is going to do about $1 million a year, and they're going to do about 20 jobs. If you go on up to Target, on average, a Target's going to do about 40 million and might employ about 300 people. So retail does matter, and it's even the little retailers, little fast food restaurants, fast casual restaurants, that once again, it's a lot of little things that add up to a big win for the community. So what are we seeing as far as trends right now? Because obviously what's happening on a national level really comes back and impacts how retail is going to expand on a local level. So what we're seeing is that basically those products that you can buy online, the brick and mortar locations are not expanding as aggressively. So these are the categories where we're seeing shrinkage, declines, downsizing. You'll see after the recession, there was what a lot of retailers made a move that they called right sizing, which if you take Best Buy, for instance, let's run through a scenario of Amazon with Best Buy. You know, Best Buy used to have about a 50,000 square foot store. They would typically go in a Target Power Center, and they really dominated electronics. You know, Circuit City filed for bankruptcy, and then Best Buy was the best game in town. Well, think about going into a Best Buy, and you spend a lot of time with that sales associate there, and you're looking at all the big screen TVs, and you finally, after maybe 30 minutes or an hour of looking and touching and feeling and seeing and everything that you want, you decide on the big screen TV that you want. And then you pull out your smartphone, open your Amazon app, scan the barcode, immediately see that big screen for maybe about 10% less, anywhere from 10 to 30% less, and you can order it right there and have it shipped to your door the next day. And not only are you saving money, it's more convenient for you. So this was happening, a trend that happened quite often, and it really hurt companies like Best Buy. So now Best Buy is shrinking. They're closing a lot of stores. They're doing Best Buy Mobile, which is closer anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 square feet, because they don't need all that inventory, because you can ship it directly to your house. So that's an example of electronics and how those are not expanding. You think about what Netflix did to Blockbuster, right, and putting them out of business, and really what Amazon's starting out with books, and a lot of the books concepts are not doing much anymore because you can get it on your Nook or your Kindle. So everything with technology is really affecting brick and mortar right now. Now let's look at the categories, or let's look at Radio Shack. Radio Shack is one retailer that is selling about 2,500 stores right now. This is an ad of Radio Shack from 1991. If you were to go through and purchase all these items, a phone, a computer, all these things, in 1991 that would have cost you more than $3,000. With inflation today, more than $5,000. You have basically all of these products in your smartphone that you can probably get for about $200 with a 2-year contract. And Radio Shack is now closing a lot of their brick and mortar locations. So that is one example of what we're seeing as a huge trend in this industry right now. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. It's a concept called omni-channeling that I'll hit on later in the presentation. But meanwhile, let's talk about the concepts that are expanding. What you're seeing with growth is that we're a healthier America now. We want organic grocery stores. We want fitness clubs. Basically, those goods and services that you can't buy online, that's where we're seeing a lot of expansion. Let me hit on restaurants. Everybody wants to see new restaurants, and what I hear a lot is we want a nice sit-down restaurant. Well, the industry term for that is casual dining, and that's where you have table service, and they come and wait on you. Well, if you think about the recession, every time you go out there and you spend your money, you're placing a vote for what you want to see in the future of the marketplace. And what we told the marketplace that we want are value and convenience. And that is definitely true in the restaurant space as well. So the brands that are really growing are fast casual. And that's where you can go in and still get quality style food, but you take your food and you control your time, and you don't have to leave an extra tip for the staff or the waiters or waitresses. So that's really where we're seeing the growth. So you think Chipotle, Panera, those are the concepts. And then the QSRs, which are quick service restaurants, fast food. A lot of growth within those categories. A few other things that are growing, furniture, that's a lot of pent up demand. Consumer confidence is at a 7-year high now, so all those goods and services, or all those items that we've been repairing over the past 7 to 8 years, we're now replacing. It's true with automotive and furniture. And pets are really interesting. We're finding that pets are pretty much recession proof, and if you look at the baby boomers, during the recession, what people loved to do was even though they couldn't spend a lot of money on themselves, they would go out and they could spoil their pet and spend $5 to $10 and really have a good experience and enjoy it. And now that we're out of the recession and consumer confidence is up and people are spending money, they're still spoiling their pets. So what you're going to see is more concepts that are about the doggy day spa and the organic treats and things along those lines. And especially if you look at the empty nesters and baby boomers, in a lot of cases their pets are kind of replacing their children, and they love to spoil their pets. So that's a growth category that we're still seeing. Sporting goods is growing, and that's one of the concepts, one of the few categories where they're actually expanding their brick and mortar locations is in sporting goods. But if you think about it and you have your family and you're on your way to the game and your son forgot his cleats, you need to run in and out and get those cleats. You think about Dick's Sporting Goods and they have golf simulators in the store. So you want to go in and touch and feel and experience these items. You want to try on your athletic gear that you're buying. And so sporting goods are really exploding and being very aggressive in their growth right now. So let's look at a few concepts that are kind of big this year as far as news goes. Target. Everybody wants a Target. How many of you have a Target in your county? Okay, about half. That's good. Target's one that went up to Canada. They opened 133 stores up there and then said, oops, we made a mistake. They realized it was going to be 2025 before they broke even. So they closed those stores, lost about $5.4 billion, and now they're focused back on America. What they're doing is City Target, which is going in major metropolitan areas downtown. It's a smaller footprint where they can penetrate those urban markets that they haven't been able to get into in the past. And they also had a huge data breach. And so Target will bounce back, but right now they're really struggling to get back on their feet because they made a couple of decisions that set them back. But their focus is going to be on the millennials and making sure that they're really capturing that audience, which is another reason why they're focused on downtown, because that's where the millennials prefer to live. So let's look at Walmart. Walmart Supercenter. You know, you're looking at about 180,000 square foot store typically. Well, they're doing smaller prototypes now. And a lot of this is a ding that was created by Dollar General. Anybody know how many new stores Dollar General is going to do this year?
1 billion.
1 million.
Pretty close, yeah. They are going to do about 725 new stores. And they have consistently been expanding at this rate. If you take all the dollar concepts, I'm going to talk about these three in a minute, but if you take all the dollar concepts in America, a new dollar store opens every 5 hours.
Wow.
So probably from the time you got up this morning until you're sitting here today, a new dollar store opened.
And they're all within a mile of one another.
Yeah, they are. They're right on top of each other. And it's just, at some point, they have to reach a level of saturation. And so we're watching that trend and seeing what's going to happen and who's going to shake out. And then what's going to happen whenever they start closing, because that's just the life cycle of retail. So look at Family Dollar in 2014. In January, going to open 500 new stores. In April, going to close 375 stores. In August, Dollar Tree put in an offer about $8.5 billion to buy them out. Then about a month later, Dollar General said, we want in on this game, so they made an offer for about $1 billion more to buy them out. Well, then the Federal Trade Commission came in and said, you two share too much of the same shopper. So Dollar General, if this goes through, you have to close 4,000 stores, right? So what ultimately shook out was that Dollar Tree bought Family Dollar. And they're going to continue to operate under the same identities and brands because they believe that they have a different consumer. So that's an example of one dollar store and how swiftly that can change. I would argue that retail is perhaps the quickest changing and most dynamic among the commercial real estate sectors. I mean, you look at that one concept and how many changes they went through in a matter of a year. And that's where Retail Strategies really focuses. We're reading these trends every day because you talk to a retailer, a lot of communities I talk to, I say, who do you want? Who would you like to see here that's not here? And they said, well, 3 years ago, I reached out to Trader Joe's and they're not coming. Well, a lot's changed with Trader Joe's today as opposed to what it was 3 years ago. So you almost have to re-prospect every 6 months. And you get a lot of no's, but that's really what you have to do in the retail world because they change so often. All right, so let's go back to Walmart. What happened was Dollar General said, we are happy to feed off of Walmart's crumbs. So what we're going to do is barbell that Walmart Supercenter and be all about convenience. So you think about a Walmart shopping experience. You go in, you park way out in the parking lot, you walk all the way back, you're wanting to get a gallon of milk, right? You go all the way to the far back right corner, and you walk all the way back to the front. And there's 15 cash registers, and one of them's open, and there's 10 people in front of you, right? It's very frustrating. You get back to your car, and all you wanted was that 1 gallon of milk, and it took you 15 to 20 minutes, and, you know, it's just frustrating. Well, now you can pop in and out of a Dollar General, you pull right up, you grab what you need, and you're gone, and you're on your way home before you've even gotten to the milk in Walmart, right? So really, Dollar General isn't all about just the dollar items. It has everything to do with that value and that convenience. And so Walmart said, oh, we need to start paying attention to this. This is really starting to ding our sales. So they've come up with a marketplace. So they have the marketplace that's a grocery store, it's 30,000 square feet, and then they have an express concept, which is 15,000 square feet. And so they're still testing this model out, but a lot of them will have a gas pump in front, they'll have a pharmacy inside, think more of like a CVS. And that's Walmart is doing about 300 of those new smaller prototypes in the country this year. Looking at some of these that are closing, you know, Kmart and Sears, it's more of a real estate firm now at this point. They have a lot of really good real estate, but they are one that is not doing very well. If you look overall across the country, what's doing well is luxury and value, and everything in the middle is really being squeezed. So if you offer me an average product at an average price, I don't want it. If you don't have convenience and something unique, I'm not shopping there. And they've really felt the effects of that. So they're closing about 235 stores, but this is still really hot real estate right now that people are chasing. We've already talked about Radio Shack, and JCPenney's still in recovery. We had a great conversation at lunch about how, JCPenney arguably was maybe the first Amazon when they had a catalog store. And when you look at that and had they followed that concept, how they might be thriving as a retailer right now, but they didn't stay up with the trends and they didn't stay up with that catalog store concept, and now they're closing quite a few stores, and they're doing a little bit better, but it's still on death watch. Yeah. So we're looking at that real estate, the buzzers are circling. Okay, so let's look at different categories. There's going to be about 43,000 new units come online this year, and of those, about 40% of those are in the restaurant category. So that's really where the focus is. If you look at millennials, and they really would prefer an experience versus a product. So they're driving a lot of the restaurants. We as Americans eat out today 34% more than we ate out 10 years ago. So restaurant, and a lot of this has to do with the dual income housing. We just don't have, or the workforce, where both of the married couple, they're both working, they're out there, they don't have time to go to the grocery store, come home and cook, so we're eating out. And you can find good food, good quality food, and really the price of groceries right now, you're really not spending a whole lot more money depending on where you go. The dollar stores, you can see that's a pretty aggressive growth there, but and we're seeing a lot with the grocery, and really what's anchoring the shopping centers right now, a lot of them are grocery, and it's the convenience style. A lot of communities I work with, they say we really want an outlet mall. Well, about 2% of the overall GLA, which is gross leasable area of shopping center space, is outlet malls. The majority of it, probably about 80%, are the grocery anchored centers, or the little strip centers that are all about that convenience on a Tuesday night on your way home from work, where you're going to pull in, grab your stuff and go. You think about the strip center that has the dry cleaners, the Chinese buffet, the nail salon. That's really where a lot of the retail GLA is focused, is in that category. So moving forward, what are we seeing as far as growth today? Pre-recession, what it was you just looked at Walmart or Target, and then all the usual suspects would line up behind them, and site selection was fairly easy. Well, since they quit growing so aggressively in those big footprints, then what you're seeing as far as growth is really these grocery anchored centers, or a power center that is 100,000 square feet or more. You have some combination of these junior boxes. And these are the ones that used to follow Target, but now what they'll do is you'll find some combination. Hobby Lobby is going to do about 50 new locations, and TJ Maxx and Ross will play together fine, but these two won't. So what they'll do, these two won't. They'll run an exclusion against one or the other. So if you have a PetSmart, you can't have any other pet concept in that shopping center. So that's why I say it's some combination of these. And once you get all those junior boxes, it basically creates your anchor, and then you're going to build out the shop space with it. And shop space goes into those growth categories we talked about earlier, things that are fitness, the cell phone stores, anything with the vitamin shop, mattress, furniture. Those are the types of things that fill out that smaller space. And then your out parcels are typically going to be restaurant based. I want to touch on Aspen Dental. This is in the real estate world, and I don't mean this offensive in any way to the medical world. In the real estate world, we call it doc in a box. And these are basically the urgent care centers. And they're really taking a lot of traditional retail space, and they love that cross shopping. They like to be in the power center, and it's all about, once again, that value and convenience. So you think about a hospital and how difficult it is to navigate, and if you don't have a primary care physician and you're sick and you need those scripts immediately, then you can go to these urgent care facilities, and they're a good credit rated tenant. So they're anchoring some small strip centers because they can really drive up the value of that whenever you're looking at your cap rate on the center and how you're going to flip it. They're good credit rated, so they're driving some retail development right now. So let's look at that second generation space. You have vacancies, and it's where somebody has left, they've closed. Who's going to fill that? And it goes back into that value. Ollie's Bargain Brands is one of them that's really growing aggressively. Harbor Freight and Tools, and Conn's is the electronics store. So these are the ones that really want to pay single-digit rents, and by that I mean it's per square foot over the year or so. These are the ones that want to pay a lower rent, and so they need to go into that vacant, what we call second generation space, or that space that's vacant where the infrastructure, everything is there, and they can get in cheap. Looking down here at convenience stores, how many of you have been to Sheetz? Yes, enthusiastic. That's how I feel about Sheetz. I love it. It's not all about fuel anymore. It's about the marketplace within. You can get a cappuccino at Sheetz. You can get sushi, fresh produce. It's great. So you can get your gas and all these things on the inside. So it's more about being on what the convenience stores can offer you on the inside as far as healthy alternatives for snacks and meals. And that's really where we're seeing a lot of growth right now. And Quick Trip's done a pretty good job of this. These are the most aggressively expanding restaurant categories right now. You see that most of them are fast casuals and QSRs, quick service restaurants. Of the sit-down restaurants or casual dining, Buffalo Wild Wings is one of the most aggressive, and they're doing 80 to 90 new stores this year. So we're seeing a big aggressive expansion with them. So let's talk about some tips. Now that you understand what's happening in the industry and the marketplace as a whole, what does that mean to you? And how do you best recruit those retailers and those restaurants to your city or your county? Well, at the end of the day, it's all about profit. And this sounds so obvious, but it's worth reminding you. It's all about profit. When Dunkin' Donuts comes out and they say, we're going to do 200 new locations in the country this year, they're going to compare you to every other site that they have in the country and figure out where they can be most profitable. So how they determine that is each one of them will have a different set of criteria they require for expansion. So Dunkin' Donuts, for instance, wants about 20,000 people within a trade area, and a trade area can vary. Really, a lot of times they're going to look at drive times, because for them, it's all about the number of rooftops that are in close proximity to that potential new location. So I like to use as a standard a 10-minute drive time. So 10-minute drive time of this site. Are there 20,000 people? Yes, absolutely. Are there 20,000 vehicles per day? Yes. Are you on a hard corner, a signalized intersection? Yes. Okay, well, let's continue down the list. And they just go through all those things and see what they can do as far as site. Once they analyze all that, who's the competition in the market? And how will they ding our store sales? Are you on the AM side of the road, the going to work, going to school side of the road? So we can take a right in, pull through the drive-through, and a right out quickly. Makes a big difference for concepts such as Dunkin' Donuts. You look at a grocery store, they want to be on the going home, the PM side of the road. So it does make a big difference. It's not just an intersection, it's what side of that intersection they're on. What is your access? What is your signage? All those things ultimately impact what they're going to look at as far as potential store sales. And then they're going to look at the cost of operation and are they profitable. And by the way, they're also going to look at the next closest location of the same concept and see that if we open a new store here, is it going to cannibalize the store sales of this location? I was at a conference with with one of my clients that I work with, and it was actually here in Atlanta, and this is a smaller community, and he went up to the rep for McDonald's, and he said, we really want a McDonald's in our community, and McDonald's rep looked and said, well, we have another McDonald's about 5 miles down the road, and if we open one in your community, we believe it'll cannibalize those store sales and really, really hurt us. And this mayor said, cannibalize them, we didn't put them out of business. And I was like, no, I won't say that. And the McDonald's rep said, exactly, we don't want to put ourselves out of business. So really, when you're making your pitch, then put yourself in their shoes and just really think about how they can be profitable and how you as a consumer shop. And just think about yourself. If that store were there, would I go? Who else would go? Does this make sense? I find so often that the methodology that communities use is exact opposite. They have 200 acres that Farmer Bob has that they think is a great site on the opposite end of town, and they think, well, here's the retail cluster, so if they go here, they don't have any competition. It's not what retailers want. They all want to locate right on top of each other. They'd rather be in the parking lot of Lowe's Home Improvement than on the other side of town all by themselves. Right? So don't think about the land first. Think about the retailer first and where you would go if you were a consumer to shop there. Think about that cross-shopping. If it's a Saturday afternoon and you have your whole list of things you want to buy, where can I buy all that the easiest and most convenient? And then think about that location. Back it in that way is how I'd encourage you to look at site selection for retailers. Now let's talk a little bit about the players and who's involved. What happens from the time that they announce on Wall Street that they're doing, let's say Dick's Sporting Goods going to do 40 new locations this year. From the time they announce that until they open in your community, who touches it, what's involved. This process takes anywhere from 18 to 36 months. Takes a lot of time, so you really have to be patient in the retail world. I did a lot of research for a Costco deal in East Tennessee in Knoxville, and we worked on it for 7 years before it landed there. So the larger the retailer, the more time. The smaller ones, the fast food restaurants, you can usually turn a little bit quicker. The franchise ones, you can turn a little bit quicker if you have an operator, but finding the operator is the challenge. But if you look at investors, they're putting pressure on Wall Street saying, what have you done for me lately? And you think about the retailers, and every store they open is profitable, that's going to drive up the stock and make people happy. So they love to announce expansions. So they go out and announce, we're going to do 40 new locations in the country this year. They go to their real estate team and say, what do you have for me? And this real estate director might be over anywhere from 10 to 20 states. Think about this real estate director, every single community, every single site. You have every single developer, broker, they're all hitting you. Thousands of sites coming at you. I was told Dollar General gets 21,000 site submissions, right? And they're going to open 700 new stores. So about 3% of those make it. So you think about the volume of information that's coming in. And so what the real estate director, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases, what they'll do is they'll hire a local tenant rep broker. It's tenant representation, we call it tenant rep. The companies you have here in Atlanta, it's the shopping center group, it's Franklin Street. Those are some of the groups that do it. What they do is it'll be a broker, and they'll have a portfolio of clients that they'll represent. It might be anywhere from 20 to 30 different retailers. And they know exactly what that retailer wants, what their site selection criteria is. They know how to negotiate the lease. They know their rents. They know all that information. So the real estate director will go to that tenant rep broker and say, what do you have for me? Tenant rep will look at the existing locations, the competition, and then pull back and submit sites to the real estate director. They're going to identify the markets first. And that is looking at, okay, if we know that you have to have 500,000 people within your trade area, looking at the entire state of Georgia, how many markets have 500,000 people, and look at the competition and see if that makes sense. Then they're going to identify the sites. If we know that you need 5 acres on this hard corner, yada yada, here's what you can pay, they'll do that. They're going to pull, tenant rep will present all that back to the real estate director. Well, the real estate director will then say, okay, we like it, we're going to run a pro forma. Let's see what our estimated sales volumes will be here. If we're open, what's the cost of operation? How profitable can we be? And if it makes sense, then they're going to go create a letter of intent. Basically, the landlord and the retailer get together, or the property owner, and they say, you keep your promises, I'll keep mine. Here's the deal terms that we have. Then it goes to real estate committee, and it might be a group of 5 to 10 people, may or may not ever visit the community. They're going to go on some sort of presentation and look and say, okay, we like it or we don't, depending on the case that's made to them by the real estate director. If they approve it, then the attorneys get involved, you cut a lease, and then you do the tenant build out, and then it opens in your community. And like I said, this can take anywhere from, depending on how big the retailer is, 18 to 36 months. So it's quite a process. And what your goal is in this is, where do you get involved as a community? A lot of it comes in right here, identifying sites, understanding the marketplace. That local knowledge that you bring is huge. So the data is out there. There's big data, there's data everywhere, but what is that local message that you can help the tenant rep broker sell the market to the real estate director? And this needs to be your elevator pitch, which is, basically you want to keep it less than 5 minutes. Ideally, you could do it in 60 seconds and say who your community is, what you're known for, what are those things beyond the demographics. They're going to run all their own demographics and that type of stuff. What makes you cool and unique? And creating that pitch is very important. I'm glad we're going to talk about the tapestries later, because that really helps you understand how to create your pitch. And then identifying sites. There's things that you might know on a local level that the real estate director would not know, the tenant rep broker does not know. You think about the 3 Ds of real estate, and it's death, divorce, desperation. So a lot of times it might be the land value is way too high, what that owner thinks that property's worth and what it's actually worth, they're off. But if any of those 3 Ds happen that you would know on a local level, it might drop that price dramatically, and all of a sudden a deal could be teed up that maybe was off the table previously due to the land price. So what's America's favorite pie?
Apple.
Apple. We all know that. Apple's America's favorite pie, right? Well, believe it or not, apple is America's second favorite pie. When the marketplace went from selling the large pies to individual pies, Apple did terrible. They couldn't sell pie. How many of you like another pie better than Apple? Just about all of you, myself included. Yeah, exactly. And so this is an example of the way we're taking big data that is out there right now, and you can apply this. A lot of things we traditionally thought, yes, obvious, we all know that. Data is disproving that, and we have to believe the data. The big challenge with data right now, there's so much of it out there. How do you decipher it? Where is Waldo in all this data? It's a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of reports that can be run, and there's stacks and stacks of paper. What do you do with it? How do you apply it? This doesn't make sense to me. What do you do? And how do you make this simple and easy to understand? How do you incorporate it in your elevator pitch, right? And so that tapestry segmentation we're going to talk about is a lot, very helpful. It is finding your Waldo. For retailers now, it's not only just about overall population. It is not just about that income level. It's about finding your core customer, knowing exactly who your core customer is and how many people in this area are my core customer. In West Tennessee, we were working on a deal for Route 21 in a small community. Route 21 said absolutely not, too small. Well, we customized a trade area, found the school enrollment for that trade area, and Route 21 likes females, it's basically 14 to 21. So we found all the females, assuming the school enrollment, half of those are female. We pulled that and then figured out they did have enough of a population base within their core customer to open a location, and they did, and they're doing very well. So that's an example of taking this data and drilling it down much further to retailers. I would definitely say when you're prospecting to retailers, you're far better off to find 10 and know everything there is to know about those 10 and customize your pitch for those 10 than this spray and pray approach. Don't send a postcard to 250 different retailers and restaurants. Know those few, do your homework, and do it that way. Really, what I found in this world, the best way that you can be relevant is save time. Save time for these people. If you are a time waster, just kind of making an introduction, telling them about the Strawberry Festival, they don't want to hear about it. You're wasting their time, and you will get blacklisted very quick. So don't cold call and reach out to them unless you have something to say and something that's relevant to them. So moving forward, what we look at a lot is drive times. It's not just about your city population, your county population. It is what is your drive time population. So when they say, tell me how big is your market? you can say the city population, but back it up with a 10-minute drive time, a 5-mile radius ring. What is your median household income, not average? They're gonna be looking for median. What is your disposable income? These are some of the factors they're gonna look at first, kind of that litmus test to see if you make the hurdle for the next look. Another thing that we do are leakage reports. And this is basically looking at your customized trade area and figuring out what are the goods and services that people are leaving the market to purchase. The way this data is run is if you go, let's use an analogy again of a 10-minute drive time, say there's 20,000 people in there, takes and tracks what everybody purchases. I mean, even if they're on vacation, if they're shopping online, whatever that is, that counts as a purchase. Then it takes every business that's within that 10-minute drive time and what they collected. And it cross-references those and then narrows down those categories where you have the greatest level of leakage. And the idea is if you have those categories, those retailers in your market, you can plug the hole and people won't have to leave to buy those things. And it's a great thing for the community when you think about jobs and sales tax dollars and changing those consumer shopping patterns to create a win for you. And also not cannibalizing the existing businesses that are already there. If you have a large surplus in certain categories, you don't necessarily want to waste your time and energy recruiting those type of retailers that are going to put out your local businesses that already exist. So really this is important to look at your leakage and your surplus within the market. Once you identify those, then you want to go find the concepts that are growing within the region, within each of one of those categories. And like I said, just find your favorite 10 to 20, whatever it might be. Find that narrow list, and this is how you narrow down that list. And also looking at peer communities, looking at other cities of similar size and makeup, and which retailers do they have that you don't have. And that really helps you create your prospect list. And once that's created, you want to find that key point of contact, and you want to drill down and really study them and then hit them about every 6 months. Creating an inventory of property is very important. This is one thing we do at Retail Strategies, and then we carve out zones within that. When you're looking at zones, it's not only about the properties, but it's about what is the type of retail we want to create to that zone. Using that clustering concept, you look at the big national retailers want to be around your largest retailer in town, whatever that is. If it's Target, if it's Walmart, if it's Costco, they want to get as close as possible to that largest retailer. So that's your nationals. Your local businesses, your franchise-based businesses, that's for downtown. Looking downtown, a lot of times nationals don't like to expand downtown because they don't have enough parking. The store build out, you take a historic building and it doesn't fit their prototype, so it's not the right size. And then their inventory, as far as the trucks being able to load their inventory, they don't want to have to front load it. And a lot of times in historic downtowns, they can't back load it, so they can't get their inventory in, and it's really a problem for them. So they'd much rather prefer to be in a shopping center with a lot of parking right out front with easy truck access for that inventory. And those are your nationals. So your locals makes a lot of sense to cluster them downtown and really create that heartbeat of your community and that sense of character. And there is a huge desire for local businesses that is continuing to grow among the marketplace. So definitely encourage that entrepreneurship and encourage those businesses downtown to create that vibrant local sense that adds your character. Some areas are going to be regional shopping, your Saturday shopping, and then some are going to be your convenience shopping. You think about Tuesday night as you're driving home from work, and that's more of your easy, quick pickup type things. All of this matters in access to rooftops, and the great thing about aerial maps is that you can see those rooftops where they locate in relation to the retailers and the traffic counts. So I highly encourage you to create an aerial map like this if you don't have one already, and this will really help you in your retail recruitment. And then execution. How do you go out and reach these people? I'd say email is the preferred form of communication in this world, but also going to ICSC shows. It's International Council of Shopping Centers. How many of you are members of this organization? Okay, good. About half. They cut the price for the public sector. It's only $100 a year. The value you get for this is tremendous. I highly encourage it. Everybody that's serious in the industry is a member of this, so it helps you find those key points of contact, gives you a picture, company name, and email address on people. So ICSC, they have a show here in October. It's called the Southeastern Conference, and it's at Cobb Galleria. It's October 28th. I highly encourage you to attend that show and just get a feel for the industry. Great place to set meetings in advance if you can, and meet with people, and it's a lot of education as well. So go to ICSC, and that's a great place to make your contacts in this network. We go to shows all over the country. The largest show you'll find is called Recon in Las Vegas, and it's in May. About 35,000 people go there, 1 million square feet of exhibitor space. It's a huge show. It's 3 days of back-to-back meetings every 30 minutes. We send an entire team of 28 people out there. So, but there are a lot of other regional shows, and if you're just getting started in this, I would encourage going to the one in October. And then, oh, this is our booth at Recon. Moving forward, ultimately, what does this mean to you? It's all about quality of life. Really, that's the bottom line. With retail, you can increase your sales tax collections. You can create your jobs. You can create your shot at an industrial prospect. But ultimately, it's about creating that quality of life. So thank you very much for your time, and be happy to entertain any questions you might have.
Most of the focus has been on the big box, big box, small boxes, the lifestyle centers, the other things. 10, 15 years ago, when you had Walmart came to town, it sucked all the business out of downtown.
Right.
Do you have a segment of your business where you're dealing with the smaller downtown development, redevelopment, and those types of things?
Yeah, it depends on the size of the community, but I think there's definitely, what I think is important for downtown, and we're working on developing a more sophisticated program for this right now, but what we currently can do for downtown is provide them all the data. So we can look at what a tenant mix for downtown might need to look like, so you know which kinds of entrepreneurs you want to prospect to. We host franchise workshops. If you think about franchises, the success rate of a franchise-based business over 10 years is about 85%, where the failure rate of a startup business is about 85%. So it's a little bit easier in the turnkey business. It's just identifying the people to buy those franchises, and those will locate downtown. So there's a couple things we can currently do, but I think that long-term, really finding those entrepreneurs is the big key to a downtown. And if you have a larger community, what are the opportunities for a mixed-use development? And our affiliate firm, Retail Specialist, has done a couple of mixed-use projects. They did one in Montgomery and one in Birmingham, where it's basically student housing on top and then the retail on the bottom. And that's really, we're seeing a lot of that right now in the marketplace, huge growth market for that. And it's definitely something worth paying attention to. There's a lot of developers that cater specifically to that type of development. One thing I didn't talk about today that we're definitely seeing a huge trend in is public-private partnerships. And you know, there's a chart I have that I don't have shown right here, but it's the new shopping center deliveries. And during the recession, it just dips tremendously, and it's finally coming back on board. But I'd say most projects that I've seen, they're over 100,000 square feet. In some way, the municipality stepped up and created a partnership, some form of incentive, like a TAD would be in Georgia, it's TIF in most other places, but definitely seeing that. So if you're serious about bringing your downtown back, develop some sort of incentive program, facade grant improvement program, revolving loan program, those type of things, which I'm sure that y'all talked about before, entertained, but you really have to put that public incentive program in place.